But Alden saw me, he's sitting in the back and he's taking notes, and he's this mental mind calculator person that has, you just talk to him and you love the guy because he knows so much that anyway, I'd like Alden to tell his story, why he's still here. Because when I re-met him, he saw me checking out in life in about 99 going, hey, Alden, well, I was at the health food store, 50 pounds later, I could lose some more pounds, but Randy, by this time next year, it's going to be, that's Dr. Joyner. Oh my gosh, he's like Incredible Hulk, but same short guy, my bald. And so Alden saw me in the store going, looking at all these immune stuff, because I still have the mind to go, you know, I need this and this, but I didn't have a practice. I sold the practice because I was told to go away, you're done, you're toast. And then Alden comes up in his hall, in the aisle, and he says, can I help you? And as I turned around, he goes, Doctor, do you have a Dr. Joyner are you relative to him? And I said, Alden, that's me. And he goes, you look like you don't feel well. And he was having the hardest time going, man, you look sick. So then we talked a little bit, and as he turns around to leave after I got my product he helped me with, he's talking like, man, I sure wouldn't want to be him. As he walked away. John, Alden?
Good. Well, my name's Alden Okie. I work at Sunrise Natural Foods. I used to be Dr. Joyner's neighbor way back when, and it's kind of funny, you've heard my story, a lot of you. I worked for Lucky's 17 years at Fulton Marconi, and in the beginning of that time I was married, I had a couple kids, and I had a buddy that I grew up with, and his name was Tommy Thompson. And we raced go-karts as kids and did all this stuff, and he became a Marine, I became a hippie. And so we broke apart, and at the 5-year class reunion we got back together, and from a Marine he turns into a 90-pound man that's all bent over. And I said, Tommy, what happened to you? And he said, well, I had a black mole on my neck, look what happened. He'd opened up his shirt and he showed me a scar from shoulder to shoulder down the middle, and he said, I had a black mole on my neck, they took it off and opened me up, took out my lymph system and said, you've got 6 months to live. And I said, really, nobody can tell you when you're going to die. I said, you know, where do you live? He says, I'm married, I live on Edison Avenue. I said, I'll come over and meet your wife. So I went over and met his wife and hung out with him while working at Lucky's. I said, you know, we can do something. So I started cutting out articles from the Sacramento Bee. I started working with him because I didn't want to see him die. And in they gave him 6 months to live. We put 2 years and 6 months on top of that 6 months and 60 pounds back on him. I went on vacation, came back, and he had died. So for the next 15 years I studied cancer as a hobby. And I got into Stanislaus R. Brzezinski's work in Houston, Texas. You probably saw him with Suzanne Summers recently when she wrote the book Knockout. Anyway, I was studying that, and in 1987 went to Sierra College and took a course on human biology to learn about the living cells, the RNA, the DNA, the double helix, the immune system. And right as I'm finishing up the class, I wrote a genetic engineering project with Dr. Brzezinski in Houston, Texas, and another Dr. Zasloff in Washington. I sent off the letters, and Brzezinski writes back and said, you know, your project would work, but your steps are out of order. Right then my wife said, I'm divorcing you, that stupid paper you wrote, get out. So I go, okay, that's it. So I packed the dogs up and split. I take a month off work Lucky's, and I go up to Eureka, California, hang out in the cabin, my buddy Fritz. And in the cabin, I'm so stressed out with this divorce thing, my heart's just broken. I get a ruptured bleeding ulcer. So I'm going, this isn't cool. So I head back to Sacramento, and I'm scheduled to go to Kaiser for a barium treatment to find out what this pain is about. And my parents said, you know, why don't you go to Kaiser tonight? They have an Al-Anon meeting, and there's a lot of stuff. I was a hippie, remember? I was coming out with a lot of stuff myself, and they might help you, you know? So I go to Kaiser, and I'm sitting there, and they're having an Al-Anon meeting. I never heard of one. And at the end of the meeting, my guts are on fire. I just want to leave. I'm in pain. This lasted a couple hours. We stand up, and I think it's time to go. We hold hands. And I'm going, wow, what's this deal? Because I was raised an atheist, and my wife was too. They started with our Father who art in heaven. I thought, oh, shoot, these are holy rollers. I'm stuck. And at the end of that prayer, I didn't even know the words. I'm just standing there. Something hit me, shot straight through me. The bleeding stopped, and the pain left me. So I go, wow. I said, I was bold. I said, I really don't agree with this meeting, but whatever you just did agreed with me. I've been healed. So they wanted to take me to Denny's. I said, I left there, and as soon as I did, all hell breaks loose. I get jumped, I got beat up, I got arrested, the car broke down, the dog had died, and I'm like in jail going, man, this really can't happen. Not just a couple months. And so I get the one call. It's about 7 in the morning. I call my dad up and I said, guess what, Dad? The car broke down, the dog's dead, I'm in jail. Can you pick me up? No. He hung up on me. I go, that doesn't happen. That's like the icing on the cake. He hung up on me. I go, this isn't right. So I had an epiphany in jail that I was no longer going to be an atheist. God was going to help me out. And as soon as I thought the door opened up and he set me free. So I'm going, well, there's nobody to call. He just let me out of jail. I'm believing now. I'm on the freeway on the 16th Street. I've never walked home on the freeway. I've seen people do it, but I always thought they must be really lost. Well, I was one of those people. And I shot up a little prayer and said, I'm really hungry. I haven't really eaten in days. I could chew you something to eat. And there's a plastic bag from Albertsons Bakery with 3 loaves of bread. I can't believe it. How did that get there? I don't know. But I'm eating the bread. I'm figuring they sent me the bread. So all of a sudden I said to myself, I said, I'm really tired. I haven't slept in days. I could sure use a lift. A guy slams on his brakes, yells out the window, hey buddy, do you need a lift? I go, this is it. I hop in the car with the bread. I get a ride right to Lucky's. I go in and get my severance pay. That's where the journey began. So then I found out that we're body, mind, soul, and spirit. And so I did the Healing Arts Institute in Roseville. I became a massage therapist. And while I'm doing that, there's a couple of people that got healed on the table. So that kind of freaked me out. So I kind of folded it up and sold it, bought my son his first car. Then I went to work for Elliott's Natural Foods and thought I would just pursue the healing arts. So I was doing that there for a couple of years, and then I moved out to Roseville and started working for Sunrise Natural Foods. But I had learned about vitamins, minerals, and herbs and the immune system. I thought I knew a lot. And that was the old school of thinking. And then all of a sudden, it's only been a few years back, that still quiet voice that we listen to, sometimes we call it our conscience, sometimes it's just God's trying to speak to us. But anyway, I didn't listen. A lot of us do that, and I made a mistake, and in a few minutes I was hit from behind, and it broke my back, actually, and caused me to go into a great amount of tribulation with that injury. And I was popping ibuprofen like M&M peanuts, and you can't do that. So my liver shut down. I ended up in Kaiser Hospital. They got me on an IV, and they won't let me have a glass of water. They say, we don't know what's wrong with you, but you're shut down, so suck on a sponge. Well, you got to try that for 7 days. Anyway, I get a staph infection from the IV, and that was about it. They pumped in a few bags of antibiotics, and I said to myself, it's time to get dressed. And I just got dressed and walked out. They said, did the doctor release you? I said, well, that's okay. I can leave, can't I? And they said, sure. So I went home and ate minestrone soup for a couple of months. Finally got back to work and could not seem to regain any kind of strength at all with all the supplements and all the knowledge I have. And then all of a sudden, Dr. Joyner shows up in my life again. And I'm thinking, what's going on with this guy? He's down at the end of the aisle. And I've been really shooting up some prayers here because I'm a believer now. And he shows up and he says, I was leaving the parking lot. So a thought came to me to go back in to talk to you. So he's talking to me. And he said, you need to come out to my shop and see what happened to me. So I come out to his shop, and he starts showing me these MRIs and all this stuff that he's been through, which basically we might call terminal. He should have died long before I should have died, really. And so I'm impressed, and then I started taking a couple of the products he was taking, and all of a sudden, my strength started coming back. But first, he did recommend a blood test. Now, it's funny about the blood work that he does, because testosterone is something we always thought just bodybuilders are tied into, but it's all of us. It's men and women, and it's really it's one of those things that he found is one of the keys to the immune system itself for both men and women. Well, my numbers were 10 points from dropping at the bottom of the list there. The top number is 827 for men, the bottom's 240, I was at 250. 3 months after taking the 2 products he was taking, all of a sudden I go back and get another blood test. I go up from 250 to 533, and I'm feeling good again. I'm like, gosh, I feel human. So I took that blood work to my regular MD, and I said, guess what, doc? Check this out. You see my testosterone here? I'm 10 points from dropping off the bottom. He said, but you're fine. I said, I'm fine. He says, you're just fine because you're in range. I said, yeah, but I'm close to the bottom. He said, that doesn't really matter. I said, well, look at the next blood test. I'm up in the high middle range, and I'm feeling really good. He says, you just think you feel good. It's in my mind now. So I go, okay. So I put the paperwork away. I realized he didn't want to talk about that. I thought I was talking his language, but that's not his language. The truth is probably not going to be their language. Now, meanwhile, while all this is going on, you won't believe what happened. I get this spiritual awakening, and I'm starting to go to this Bible study that Dr. Bob has at his house every Thursday night for 9 years. He's the head oncologist for Sacramento. The head oncologist. Lives in a huge white house off of Fair Oaks Boulevard, Park Place or Boardwalk there. And I go to this big house, and it looks wonderful. There's doctors, there's lawyers, and there's nurses, and they're very intelligent. And I figured they were sincere. This doctor at the end of these little meetings would pray for his patients because they're all cancer patients. They're all dying. So all of a sudden I thought, what a great idea. I've got Brzezinski's work. I can take it to this guy. He'll receive it and help his patients out. I go back the next week and he hands it back to me and says, sorry, this can't help me. There's not enough scientific evidence to support this. And I said, oh, really? Because I've been studying a long time and I believe that this guy had the fruits of his labor. A little bit like Dr. Joyner. We can see people coming out, not dying. In other words, they go in, they don't go out in the casket. So I thought, that's wrong. So I went back one more time. And this time, that Dr. Bob was passing kidney stones in front of us. It's a very painful thing. I've done it myself. And this guy was in such pain, he almost starts to cry. And he says, please pray for me. And he says, listen to the quote out of his mouth. And I'll never forget it. All the patients I've ever had are dead. And the ones now I have are dying. Pray for me. I go, my gosh. That's an amazing thing to say. Only under duress and only under pain would he even say that. It's like a mechanic saying, every car I worked on is broken, and the ones I have, no, don't run. Would you like to bring it in? I'm like, I'm never going back. I never went back. I was shocked when I left there. So I said, well, that's not the route for me. I'm going to go another route. And I have ever since. And I realized it's so amazing that when people come in and they listen to the medical profession sometimes, you can walk away with a literal hopeless feeling on the inside. And a lot of people I see in the store have that same feeling on the inside. And that's when I show them there is another way and there is hope. And there's some living examples of that hope. And then I usually, if I can't help them with just a supplement, and if I can't help them with just some knowledge that I have, I usually send them on over to Dr. Joyner. And I have to say, you can't downplay chiropractic, because chiropractic is good too. I was thinking my ribs, when my back was busted, Dr. Joyner was the only one that put it back in, and that's quite a relief. So I wouldn't leave chiropractic out of this either. But immune system stuff is just cutting edge right now, and it's really the key to the immune system and the key to having a good life and a life worth living. So I'm not going to go over all the things that John spoke about, the alkalinity, and those things are all real, and they're all pertinent. But the thing is, I would say, is that you won't find a lot of people, even in the naturopathic, holistic medicine, that actually have the kind of knowledge that it takes to make the immune system come back and make you feel like you're going to live a quality life. So I really do give a lot of thanks to his work and all his efforts and the things that are happening here. So it was a pleasure.